Can I tell you, hey, this is the one question that I hate when people ask us, how did you guys meet? Because I already know that he's about to tell a big fat lie.
No.
And then I'm going to have to correct him. So let me tell you how it went.
I'm Sari Mitnick, and this is Same Work Radio, where we tell stories about the surprising ways that sewing impacts our lives. Mimi G has long been a fixture in the sewing community. She's friendly, down to earth, and she has killer style. It's easy to see why she inspires so many people, all while teaching them how to sew. But Mimi doesn't just teach people how to sew. She invites her online community into her life to share in her triumphs, excitement, and even at times her struggles. To know her, even from afar, is to root for her. So when Mimi introduced the sewing world to her then beau and now husband, Norris Danta Ford, in 2015, it was easy to be enchanted by the creative energy and connection they shared. Here's Haley Glenn with Mimi and Norris.
I am not ashamed to say that I love a love story. Sewing oftentimes can feel like this really solitary endeavor, but once in a while, when you're really lucky, sewing can connect you to people who will change your whole life. And maybe, if you're really, really lucky, sewing will connect you to your person. That was the case for Mimi and Norris. Mimi's love of sewing started young.
I used to watch my aunt, who was a seamstress when I was little. I used to spend my summers in Puerto Rico. And I would watch her make like bridal gowns and formal wear. And I was just like completely amazed at how she took this fabric and turned it into like such beauty. And so that really piqued my interest in sewing.
Mimi started sewing her own clothing around the age of 12. And like most of us, her first projects had some definite hiccups. Soon after, she decided to make her mom a dress for a wedding she was attending. They carefully chose the pattern, a shift dress with a sweetheart neckline, and fabric which Mimi recalls was bright red.
And when she tried it on, it was a little tight at the hips. The neckline was really off and the hem was uneven and it was pulling in all the wrong places. And quite honestly, it was a hot mess. But my mom wore it. She wore the dress to the wedding, and every time someone asked her about it, she told them that her daughter had made it. And I think for me, what that was like, I don't know, like a changing moment in my life where I was like, oh my God, I want to dress people. You know, I want to do this. I want to be a fashion designer, which was my initial thought. It just didn't turn out that way.
While Mimi started dreaming of fashion design, her mom knew she was destined for the limelight.
My mom, unlike a lot of parents who want their kids to like go to college and have some sort of formal degree and become a doctor or a lawyer, my mom was like, man, you should be a movie star. She has this deep love for film and television, and she just always wanted me to be some sort of TV star. I guess she sort of got that now in a different way.
Eventually, Mimi did make a career in the entertainment industry, but her demanding job left her needing a creative outlet.
I was working in film and production. I was working like 16-hour days. It was insane. And I started blogging because I wanted to journal what I was doing, for myself, what I was sewing. And I was sitting at work one day. It was a really long day. And I was like Googling sewing. And I thought I was the only person who still sewed, like my age. I didn't think that people were sewing outside of like your grandmother and your aunties. And all of a sudden I started coming across all of these different blogs that were sewing related.
Even though Mimi started blogging in 2008, it wasn't until years later that it became more than a hobby.
In 2012 is when I really started to take it seriously. And that was sort of the birth of Mimi G Style Inc. and, the blog and the tutorials and the videos and that sort of thing. And so I think it sort of just blossomed. And, I was just honestly smart enough to see that there was potential and that there was growth there and to, focus my energy on growing that.
Norris, on the other hand, didn't discover sewing until adulthood. But fashion and personal style was something he began thinking about at an early age.
I have been fashionable and creative, I guess, since the age of like 6, because my younger sister and I was living in foster homes. So I saw that there was a pattern. There was always a couple, or what I'm saying, or adults looking to come adopt kids. So what I did was I just got creative. So I just told my sister, I was like, look, let's pick out 2 or 3 different outfits. And over the course of one visit, we would change clothes like 2 or 3 times just to look presentable, to get a family, to get a new home. Eventually it worked. And I thought, little 6-year-old me thought it was because how fresh I was.
With lots of kids this age, their preoccupation with clothing might stop and start with their favorite color or the character on their t-shirt. Even though his wardrobe changes didn't influence his adoption, Norris was already picking up on the language of style and what our clothing says to the world.
So as soon as we got adopted, we was going to a whole new school. So my very first day at school, I think it was first grade, I walked in and I looked across the room, and there was this guy named Jimmy Macklin, which was literally we grew up together. He literally became my best friend, and he lived like some houses down. But anyway, I looked across the room and I saw him, and he had the exact same outfit I had on. Like, I guess those kids outfits that has like the shorts on top of the same hanger with the shirt. It was a horizontal stripe, purple and yellow shirt. And then the shorts were, I think, yellow with like a purple strip at the hem up underneath the yellow. And I was like, dang it, he got the same exact outfit on. So I'm like, man, this can never happen. I'm never buying a matching set ever again. Well, I think my mom bought it, but I always have to mix it up or do something like that because this cannot happen. So that was a very pivotal moment for me, because it just told me to, like, just be even more different, because you just never know.
Norris was also heavily influenced by his older brother, Roger. He remembers Roger's style standing out from the crowd in high school.
And that was a time where everybody was wearing baggy pants, wearing Jordans, wearing jerseys. And he would have these nice tapered slacks on with penny loafers, tucked in polo shirt. He had a matching polo shirt, matching polo hat. And he was just different from anything else that I saw at the moment. So I was like, man, I saw that I didn't really think about it at the time, but it kind of influenced a lot of my style to just be a little bit different than what you saw trending at the moment.
Norris's interest in style and fashion never went away, but for a time he sidelined his passion.
My very first moment of just thinking about the fashion industry as a whole was when my mom was taking me to different colleges to visit, straight after graduating in high school. And I wanted to tell her, hey, Mom, I want to go to a fashion design school. But I was too chicken to tell her, because I thought that type of fashion was just only for women. So I was kind of shy about telling her where I wanted to go. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to another school for business, marketing, or something like that. And that's what I did. So my last year, I kind of associated fashion into like modeling clothes. So I just started picking up different modeling gigs because I could dress very well. And my last year, I was like, you know what? If I really want to take this fashion thing serious, I have to go either to New York or LA.
Norris's talent and style quickly landed him a career and recognition in the fashion industry.
So I went straight to LA. And 2 months of me being there, I met this other gentleman that was into fashion, and he was from Georgia too. His name Thrash. And we collaborated and started a style blog called Norris X Thrash because of the collaboration of us both. And we would go out to different events, and people would stop us, take pictures of us. And we saw how much attention that we were getting. And through that, people started hiring us to style different video shoots, magazine tutorials, and all kind of things like that. So after doing that for a while, we was like, man, we really have potential. So we just stopped the blog and we started working as wardrobe stylists.
In 2015, Mimi and Norris would finally cross paths at a fashion show in Los Angeles. Mimi's career in the sewing industry was thriving, with an incredibly popular blog and even a pattern line with simplicity.
I was actually living in Nebraska at the time. I was coming back and forth to LA for work. And I was really busy because I was doing a lot of sponsored content, and I was working with a lot of different brands. And I had gotten a message from Verizon about doing sort of a contest where a fan would win the chance to hang out with me for the day at this fashion show in Los Angeles. And anybody who knows me knows that I don't really go out. Like I'm a total homebody. I don't like going to the clubs. I don't like going out unless it's a restaurant. I'll go to a restaurant in a minute. And so the idea of I was like, going to an event and having to go to a fashion show, I was like, oh my gosh. But any chance I got to go back to LA, I was like, okay, let's do it. So we had, I was trying to get everything scheduled at the house with the kids and get the house in order so I could leave. And that month in particular, I had so many events because it was award season.
The day of that very same fashion show, Norris was downtown at the Taylors with Thrash. They had intended to go to the fashion show that night when Thrash received a phone call. The show that they thought started at 6 p.m. actually was starting at 3.
It was like, what? So at the time, it was like 2:30. So that's no time in LA traffic trying to get all the way up into the hills. So it was like, you still want to go? He was like, nah, we good. And he was like, well, let's see, can we just make it? So I was like, okay. So we got in the car, we drove all the way to my house. And at the time, we wouldn't even dress to go to the event. We just had on what we had on for the day. So I stopped at my house, dropped some stuff off, and we went into, I guess, the location of where the fashion show was. So we made it there. As we get there, people walking out. So we was like, man, like, you still want to go in? And we was like, man, let's just walk in and just see what's up, just show our face. And then we just walk into the fashion show.
Mimi and Norris have slightly differing accounts on how their first interaction played out.
Can I tell you, this is the one question that I hate when people ask us, how did you guys meet? Because I already know that he's about to tell a big fat lie.
No.
And then I'm going to have to correct him. So let me tell you how it went. I was standing there with my friend Tico, who I had actually just met at the time. I met her that same day. And there were some other fans around and we were photographing and people were taking pics with me and stuff. And so I remember getting to the fashion show and, people were coming over to take pictures and talk with me. So that was a lot of fun. And then Norris and Thrash walked in. So I look over to the door and here comes this really tall guy and this not so tall guy. And they looked insane. I was like thinking in my head, like, first of all, what's on their heads? Because if you've ever looked at old pictures of Norris, when he had his dreads, it looked like a hat. It was like massive. And Thrash was the same. They had and Norris had maybe like 8 different prints on. He had floral, paisley, plaid, like all kinds of things were happening. And I was thinking, who are these guys? But the short one's kind of cute. So we're standing there, they're over there. People are obviously coming up to them, trying to take pictures. They're getting a lot of attention. And the Verizon lady says to me, hey, can you come over and take a picture with the guys for the show? I said, sure, no problem. So I walk over and I get in between both of them. We take the picture, right? Everything's going fine. Norris starts talking.
That's it? Is that it?
No. Norris starts to talk to me, and he's a little short, and I had on 6-inch heels. So I leaned in to hear him.
There we go.
Remember how I said their stories differ?
There we go. Okay, that's it. I can't take more of this.
Here goes his line.
So listen, this is what it is, right? So we walk in. Obviously, we're accustomed to people coming up, taking pictures with us because of our style, our unique style, as she's explained it, right? That part was the truth. I had about 10 prints on. We were doing our thing. And mind you, Thrash is the height of like an NBA player. Like he's super, super tall. So when you see me, it might assume that it's like I'm just average, so I'm like slightly above average, okay? So we walk in, she walks over, I guess with whoever the Verizon people was. At the time, I didn't know what was going on with the Verizon. I just knew she wanted to take a picture with us. So we get in, and I just made a little joke because people always come to take pictures with us. So since she came over and then people followed her, I was like, oh, you must be popular or something. And she looks at me. Listen now. She looks at me and she looks me in my eyes and says, "You don't know who I am?" And I said, "What?" In my head, I'm like, who in the hell is this Hollywood chick in the Hollywood Hills talking about you don't know who I am? So I just laughed it off and I was like, oh, it must be a joke or whatever. So we take a picture. And after the picture, she just never left. She stood, listen, look, she stood this close. She stood this close to my face. And I'm saying it must be one or two things. Either she a close talker or she just really into me. So I was like, you know what? I'm about to test these theories out. So I started talking to her and I ended up giving her my phone. She put her number in it. And at the time I didn't realize it, but she saved it up under my favorites. And I mean, not like just on the list. She put above my family, above my mom, right at the damn top. And I'm like, who in the hell is this woman? So at the time, like I remember that she was pretty, but I didn't really look into like the details of what she looked like.
You can really tell from hearing them laugh through telling this story that they connected from the very beginning. You also have to give Mimi props because saving yourself as a favorite in someone's phone is a total power move.
I just remember the way she made me feel. And I'm like, man, she gave me really good energy and it felt great.
Of course, Norris had to check out Mimi's Instagram.
I was like, man, this is the person I was talking to. Like, man, I don't remember her looking like this. And then the first time after that, when we met, I looked at him like, oh wow, you look just like your Instagram pictures. Because at the time, this was like, Instagram was almost at its peak. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like people look way different than what they were, you know what I'm saying, in person, you know, with all the filters and all the extra apps that make you look different. But she looked exactly like her pictures.
They started talking the very next day, and that spark that they felt the day before was definitely still there.
And it was something that I haven't really felt before. And that way it had me interested, which was something different and something new to me.
I was so drawn to his level of confidence because there was just the way he carried himself said so much about his comfort level and how he saw himself. And it was unapologetic. And he had an enormous amount of swag. Like, I couldn't help it. He was just so cute.
And as their relationship was just beginning to form, Mimi's daughter Lexi was in a car accident. Norris's support during this time showed Mimi that he was the real deal.
While I was there, my second oldest daughter got into a really bad car accident. And I remember waking up that morning and I had shut my phone off. My phone goes off, as you can imagine, with social and stuff. It's always dinging. And so I had been really tired and I silenced my phone. And in the morning when I woke up, I had so many missed calls and 911 messages from her father, like 911, Lex is in the hospital. She had a car accident. And so I was completely panicked. And if you've never experienced that, it's almost like you don't know what to do. And so I literally was going around in circles in my hotel room, like trying to find out what to put on and what do I do and how do I get to the hospital. And Norris was like, calm down, I'll take you to the hospital. And
when Mimi didn't feel like she could hold it together, Norris was calm, cool, and collected.
So when I got to the hospital, her dad was like, it's bad, but just don't freak out, because if you freak out, she's gonna freak out. And I was like, okay. So I went into the room where she was in, and her mouth was all bloody and her face was all swollen. And I remember grabbing her hand and she looked at me and she's like, Mom, I got into an accident. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And she's like, but look, I didn't break a nail. And I was like, and I thought, oh, she's going to be fine. She's like normal.
Mimi ended up bringing her daughter back to her hotel with her while she recovered. Because of the injury she had sustained to her mouth, she was on a soft food diet.
I come back one day and she was like eating Chipotle. And I'm like, why are you eating Chipotle? And she was like, Norris went and got me Chipotle. And I'm like, but when we got to the hotel from the hospital, he carried her all the way upstairs to the room. And then he came back a couple of days later to see her, and he brought her, she couldn't go anywhere, so he brought her a little toy helicopter that she was flying around the room the entire day, annoying the crap out of me. But there were little things like that about him that I thought, he's a genuinely caring person.
Gestures like this reassured Mimi early on that Norris was the real deal, and he could be a supportive partner for both her and her children.
That was a little nerve-wracking for me too, because I'm 10 years his senior. So, I didn't know how you start dating someone who's never really been in a serious relationship outside of a college girlfriend, and doesn't have children, and had never been married, and and I'm like a divorcee, 2 times over with like 4 kids, and so I didn't know how that was going to work out.
Despite the differences in their age and history, their connection and trust in one another laid the foundation for a friendship that is still the cornerstone of their marriage today.
Coming up, Norris learns how to sew.
Her machine is like the Bentley of machines. So I had the best machine. I had an unlimited amount of fabric. At the time, I didn't know what a stash meant to a person. I just thought it was for everybody in the house. But I had unlimited supplies of fabric and all this stuff. So it was just so easy to learn. I didn't realize how significant she was to the community at the time, but I had the queen of the sewing world in my hip pocket.
If you're enjoying this podcast so far, you might really like joining in at the Seamwork community. In addition to this podcast, every month we create new sewing patterns, a video class, and a monthly digital magazine. When you become a member, you get access to all of that each month, plus you can hang out and talk in our private community forum. We're all really welcoming, and it's a great place to ask questions, post projects, or share your thoughts. Right now, podcast listeners can get a special discount of 50% off the unlimited plan. That gets you access to our full catalog of over 150 patterns, and you can download as many as you want, whenever you want. It's only $90 for a whole year of patterns, plus classes, videos, magazine articles, and access to the private community. Check it out at seamwork.com/go/podcast50, or look for the link in the show notes.
When Mimi and Norris met, Mimi's career in the sewing industry was in full swing. In addition to designing sewing patterns, she was creating tons of content. Norris stepped in with a helping hand.
I really did need someone to help me photograph and film and edit. And so he just happened to be really good at it. And so, that really sort of helped me a lot.
That first year, I was kind of helping her, photograph and film. So I would watch her make it, and then I would edit. So I'm watching it over and over and over, depending on what kind of edit I need to do. It was like multiple videos. So I'm watching it, and I'm like, man, I think I can do this.
After a year of watching, observing, and in turn learning, Norris wanted to give sewing a try.
And then when he said that he had an interest in learning to sew, I thought, really? Like you want to sew? And he was like, yeah. And so I was like, okay, I'll teach you. And so I did what I think every girlfriend does, when they're like, I'll show you how to make a t-shirt. And so we did. I taught him how to make a t-shirt. He had been watching me sew for almost a year before he, asked about sewing. And he had made a t-shirt, came out really well.
It came out so well, in fact, that he made a YouTube video to document the project and was soon on to making another shirt. Mimi was out of town when he finished his second project, so he called her to share his sewing victory and his plans.
I think I'm ready for my next project. I'm like, cool, what do you want to do? He's like, I think I want to make a suit. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
There's a lot of steps from a t-shirt to a suit that we got to cover. But it's just how he is, right? He's like, when he wants to learn something or really enjoy something, he's like full steam ahead.
As it turns out, Norris did not rush straight into a suit. He made some more t-shirts, some drop crotch pants, even a vest. His eye for detail helped him to identify some of the skills he would need to start building in order to reach his ultimate goal.
But obviously, I needed to do a lot more projects prior to that. But some of the things that I did learn early on that has helped me during this process was cutting plaid or matching plaid, matching prints, and doing welt pockets and stuff like that. So those were some of the first things I had really asked her on teaching me. So when she broke down on just the basic techniques on how to do these certain things, it has helped me so much up until this point.
His attention for detail and career as a stylist also made him feel like the stakes were higher in his sewing journey.
I felt even more pressure because if they look at me on ready-to-wear stuff that I could style great, imagine how they're going to be looking at me if I made something. So it has to look just as good as something I bought. So I just felt like I need to take everything slow and give everything attention. So I would ask her a million questions for every single thing. I was like, babe, so is it like this? Or what about the zipper? Oh, but what kind of pattern should I use? Or what type of fabric? Or does it do this? So I would ask her so many details on so many techniques. And also, I felt like I needed to learn the things that I enjoyed the most.
Even though his natural talent and previous experience with apparel gave Norris a leg up when he was learning to sew, he also had the benefit of learning from a total pro.
I would say I caught on super fast because I had her right here. So I didn't have to watch a video over and over. I didn't have to research the internet. I didn't have to go to the store and get supplies because she had everything. I had her hand-me-down amazing machine. Her machine is like the Bentley of machines. So I had the best machine. I had an unlimited amount of fabric. At the time, I didn't know what a stash meant to a person. I just thought it was for everybody in the house. But I had unlimited supplies of fabric and all this stuff. So it was just so easy to learn. And I didn't realize how significant she was to the community at the time, but I had, the queen of the sewing world in my hip pocket.
When Mimi says that Norris is a full steam ahead kind of guy when he sets his mind to something, she means it. It's crazy to think about how much impact Norris has had on the sewing world as a whole, just in the first couple years of sewing.
Really early on in our relationship was when I launched Sew It Academy. And he was like, where are all the patterns and the resources and the classes and stuff for men, for menswear? And I'm like, I don't know. They don't exist. And so I think that is probably what he has contributed the most, not just to my brand, but to his own brand, is bringing visibility to men who sew, and creating a lane and a resource and a platform for them, like there is for us, because there wasn't one, and so he's done an incredible job there. And, anything that I do, he's there with me. When I say partner in the entire sense, we are partners.
Sewing was quickly becoming a real passion for Norris, and something he felt challenged him in ways that his work as a stylist wasn't doing as much.
There wasn't much of an effort I had to put towards dressing or working on a project. That's what y'all want to look y'all want to go with? Okay, cool, easy. I never really had to think about it that much. And me and Thrash, it just became like second nature. I felt like I didn't really have a talent. It's like, hold on, it's just style. I'm thinking everybody or every man knows how to do a certain suit look or casual look. But come to find out, a lot of people really didn't know that.
Sewing challenged Norris in new ways.
But you have more of a skill set, you have more talent, that could take you further. It opens up your possibilities of, doing anything for yourself or for another fashion or something in the industry, when it comes to pattern making or, like a lot of people just don't realize how many more talents and skill set that it opens the door for you in the fashion industry, learning this skill set.
And with the help of Mimi, he's been able to bring that combination of raw talent and skill to the sewing world.
Maybe there's an opportunity to bring a little bit more style into the world of the DIY menswear. And she has been able to open that door up because prior to me, she didn't really have an interest of men's fashion. Like she would have a lot of men email her and like, hey, I made this for my wife or I made this for myself, but they didn't want to share it. They just shared it with her. They kept it secret.
And as Mimi helped Norris grow his sewing practice, he was also becoming her most trusted collaborator.
Honestly, Norris is my right hand. So he works on everything. Since we've started dating, he's worked on just about everything that I do in some capacity. Whether it was, like I said, filming, editing, photographing, definitely always having input on style and fashion, on projects we were doing. But then also, he has a really creative mind. So whenever we're working on campaigns, I know that he'll have some sort of idea. It might be insane and not possible, but he'll have it.
Talking to the two of them, you know that you're speaking with two best friends, and that creative and romantic spark is so apparent. So it's no surprise that they furthered their commitment to each other through marriage in June of 2019. Creatively, this duo has never missed a beat. They collaborate on pretty much everything. One of their favorite projects to date was their show, He Sewed, She Sewed for Blueprint.
I think when we did He Sewed, She Sewed gave us a lot of really great moments that were sewing specific, because we had never really done anything like that together. I mean, we had done maybe a couple of YouTube episodes or things like that, but this was something we actually had to do together and work together and surprise each other with the fabric choices. And so that was a lot of fun, because I think we both knew that we were going to tease each other a little bit. So I think that was a definite sewing bonding moment, was filming those episodes.
And they're constantly adding kindling to each other's creativity.
But having somebody there all the time when you're working and you might hit a creative slump and you need somebody with fresh eyes or somebody who's really creative, he's always there. And so I think that makes working together a lot more fun, because half the time we're thinking the same exact thing, or the next thing I want to do, he's already like, oh, you should. And he's 3 steps ahead of whatever I'm thinking. So it works out. He probably has a different opinion.
Sometimes they have to remind each other to turn that creative switch off.
A lot of times when I'm in work mode, and then now it's like, okay, I need my husband now. So we could try to sit down and watch Netflix or something. And I'm like, babe, about the project today, we should da-da-da-da. And she was like, hold on, can we just turn it off right now? So it's like both sides, you know what I'm saying? So over the years, we've both had to sit in and just gradually understand and learn how to properly do work, live, play, because that's basically what our life is.
But they both agree wholeheartedly that communication is the key to making it work professionally and personally.
Communication, time management, knowing when to turn things on and turn things off, and also give the same type of energy that you give to your work to your relationship, and vice versa. If you give a lot of great attention to your relationship, you want to give the same amount of attention to the work, you know what I'm saying? Because some people can slack off that. So just being able to give it a good balance.
As we were finishing off our conversation, I asked them what they most admired about each other.
Oh my God, it's so many things. We don't even have enough time. A few things that I can say that I admire from her is how great of a mom she is, because I know, a lot about her background, and I'm with her all the time, and I see the attention that she gives to the kids. And of course, everyone knows that she's working on 1,000 projects all the time. I just admire that. She's fearless, and whatever she wants to do, she plans it, she set a date, and she sticks to it. And no matter how crazy it is behind the scenes, we're gonna get it done, no matter if it takes the very last second before we hit one. Yeah, so those two things alone is something that I really admire of her.
He also acknowledged how she enhances his creativity.
She enhances my creativity because she has a high level of talent and also creativity when it comes to just fashion forward. Because we're almost like the same person. Like if I look at something, we could pretty much both imagine the same thing without even talking about it. So just having someone that you can bounce the same energy off, and you don't have to worry about how, because some people you talk to, you be like, hey, what you think about this? You know what I'm saying? That might be far left from what you're thinking. But hers is so, like, I don't have to think about how she's going to look at something, how she's going to see the creativity of it. It just works so well with our brains.
I mean, as if they could get any sweeter. Mimi admires Norris's support and his kindness.
I think one of the very first things that really impressed me about Norris was how kind he is. Not just with me, right? But like everybody who knows him, everybody who meets him, his friends, his family, they love him. They love him. And you start to see why when you're around him, because he really is kind and thoughtful. When I watch him around my kids or watch him around my mom, he's always so present. And that for me is really admirable. And then also, personally and selfishly, I will say, he is my biggest cheerleader. When something happens for me, he's probably more excited about it than I am about it. His energy when something great is happening for me is just insane. And he always makes it a point to let me know how great I'm doing, or when I'm doubting myself, he's the first one to bring me back, and remind me, of what I've done or what I'm doing or what my purpose is, or he's always championing me. And that for me is really important. And because people don't often see the behind the scenes of my life, much like on social media, you always see a lot of the good stuff and you don't always see the hardships that people go through or the heartaches or disappointments. And he's always there for all of that, and so for me, having somebody who is always present and encouraging and uplifting me is a really big deal, because he's the absolute one person that I can count on no matter what. And he and I would say this all the time. If for whatever reason we weren't together as a couple, we would always be best friends. Like that would just not ever go away.
And isn't that the best kind of love story? The one where the partners are each other's best friends and cheerleaders? I guess it also helps when there's a heaping dose of sewing mixed in with the happily ever after.
That was Haley speaking with Mimi G and Norris Danta Ford. You can find them at mimigstyle.com and norrisdantaford.com. Seamwork Radio is brought to you by the Seamwork community, and you can find us at seamwork.com. If you have a story to share, send us an email at podcast@seamwork.com. We'd especially love to hear stories from those whose experiences often get left out of the conversation, whether because of race, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, age, or any other reason. Again, that's podcast@seamwork.com. You can find us on Instagram at Seamwork and Seamwork Video on YouTube. We'd love to invite you to join us at seamwork.com. We have an amazing community there, as well as new sewing patterns and classes each month for members. Podcast listeners can get 50% off our unlimited membership, which gets you unlimited downloads from our library of over 150 wardrobe-building sewing patterns. Just visit seamwork.com/go/podcast50. You can also find that link in the show notes. And if you like this podcast, please consider giving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or the podcast app of your choice. It really helps other people to find the show so they can hear these stories too. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back with you soon. I'm Sari Mitnick, and this is Seamwork Radio.